Hello, welcome back, all you artists. And you guys are here. It is time for art. My name is Hershey Petty. I am your host. We're here with our accomplished artist, Allison Crary. Sorry.
Hello.
Hello. Nice to see you, Allison.
Nice to see you too, Hershey.
We're very excited. Today is a paint day. It's Wednesday paint day, and we are doing this guy here. So everyone go to your kits. Make sure you have the moth on a flower cluster today. You're going to be shocked to see that this entire thing is made with just 3 different colors. So we're super excited to mix some colors, blend today. We're going to do the format, the way it's going to work today is that Allison and I are going to go over how to set up and what to do and all that jazz, get you your materials and everything, go over some painting techniques. We're going to learn some new vocabulary as well, which is really fun. And then we're going to live stream the video from YouTube for you guys. But unlike last week, we're actually going to stay on this time, and we're going to mute ourselves, but we're going to be following along with you guys. So this week, if you guys have questions, if you guys have any comments you want to make, feel free. I'll be still reading the questions. I'll be available to you guys. You just won't hear us. You'll be listening to the video. But before we do that, I want to talk to you guys a little about a new group that has been created on our Facebook page. Our Facebook page, is called Time for Art Subscriptions. We've got a new Facebook group where it's specifically designed to show yourself, your friends, and all of your other artists out there in our art community all the fun that we're having. So when you want to snap a photo and upload your work, whatnot, that's where you'll do it. So if you haven't already, go to your Facebook and you'll go to groups and you'll look for Time for Art Subscriber instead of Time for Art Subscriptions. And then click there. When you do, you have to be approved to be in the community, and somebody, probably me, will jump in there and make sure we get you guys all in there. And we really encourage you guys to go there today when you're done and upload. You'll see in a minute when you log in there, I've uploaded some pictures of my paintings like in process. And so feel free to do that too. You don't have to wait till it's all said and done. Sometimes it's really cool to see where another artist is at when they're following the exact same video as you. Where are they at in a certain stage? So upload your photos and share what you're doing, because it's really, really cool. And Allison, we're going to we'll get them all set up, and then we'll learn some vocab. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think just on the groups that we're really excited about, because it's been up, it hasn't been going live. We've had everybody wanting to share their work and talk about their work and talk about colors you're mixing and tips and tricks, things like that. We've been posting it to the comments section of the videos, which is awesome because that's what we asked of everybody, and that's great. It's just not the best format to have these discussions. The best format is definitely in the group. And so go there. We're going to be on there. We're going to see if we can go live from there. We're learning. Well, that may or may not be something we can do, but we're interested in even doing that. But that's where everybody's going to talk about their work and share their work, and anything goes. The reason you have to ask to be in it is we want everyone to actually be a real person. So no bots allowed. So that's the only thing. It's private for that reason. And then after that, yeah. And even if your friends might be interested in joining, go ahead and have them ask to be part of the group, and they can see the kind of conversations we have and go from there. So we're going to get you all set up to paint, and then we're going to go through some painting techniques that we cover in this video ahead of time, so everyone can ask questions. And then we're going to go ahead and live stream the video and keep talking. We'll be around. So first thing, just to get set up, I've got the materials list. You're going to need these 3 paints: your lemon yellow, your permanent green light, and your crimson red, and your big whites. After that, you're going to need your brushes. I think we use all of them. So all 3 brushes. If for whatever reason you don't have one of those brushes, you can always figure it out with the other ones, but you want all 3 of those. You want your reference image. The reference image will also be available in the video, but it's very nice to have a physical reference when you're working from something. So keep this handy, keep it close. If you'd like to scan this code, this will take you right to the video. We're going to go ahead and show the video tonight, but this will take you right to the Moth video, and that's what it's there for. You're going to need your canvas panel that I've got right here. You are going to need your pencil, you are going to need your outline template. Here's your outline template. It is cut to the exact size of your canvas panel, and that's obviously for a reason. You're going to need your labels or your tape. I've got my labels out, but you can use tape. Either way, we've provided labels, so you're not without tape and can't work with us. You're gonna want your water out, and then you're gonna want your graphite paper for transferring. So I'm just gonna go ahead and hinge.
You know, and this
My
step right
outline.
here, Allison, I want to say, because I already started the video and I've done some of the steps already.
Yeah.
I just want to recommend to everybody today, this, in the past, when Allison showed us how to hinge these photos or hinge the tracings, I like use this little pieces of tape so that I didn't waste or whatnot. Today, I would make sure that I use big pieces because mine came off in the middle while I was painting, and when I went to go put it back down, it just wasn't right. So really make sure that your tracing image is sturdy, stuck to that canvas.
Sturdy, on tight. And in this specific one, you are going to transfer some and then transfer again. You want a strong hinge on there.
Yeah.
So
right.
I've got my two labels. They were fairly big pieces that I used on each side, hinging the outline to the canvas panel. And then I've got our graphite paper. You always want the sticky side down. That's your graphite. You're going to tuck it in underneath. And then with your pencils, you don't need to do it right now, but you will be applying pressure to your lines and it will show up on your canvas panel. Easy peasy.
Easy peasy.
After that, I want to go through a few techniques you're going to be using today. So work with these colors today. I'm going to start with my first one in red, and I've got don't worry if you don't have your moth here, this is just for demonstration's sake, but I'm going to show you a few techniques that are going to happen in the video. And then when it comes up, you'll be familiar. You can pause the video as many times as you want, all of the above, but we'll break it down here first. The first one, and this just makes you a more proficient painter, is when you want to paint in an edge or a line, you want to get your brush nice and wet with paint, and I moisten the brush ahead of time. And you always want to pull a line, not push a line.
That's right.
And I feel like I just did that like the infomercial style where I wrecked this line and like made the other one like the Channel or something like that.
Yeah.
But really,
yeah.
it is always easier to pull a line than it is to push a line. Doesn't work as well. After that, you can pull a line around a curve. Practice doing that. In this case, you can pull a line and then paint sort of the other side of it. So not just the line. You can use more the tip of your brush. You can use your whole brush like that, and you get a really even line. But this is, you can't practice this enough.
I really, truly.
You just can't. And you could just sit and do this even when you're watching TV and you want to be doing something like while you're watching Netflix. Just practice pulling a line.
Allison?
What's that?
You watch TV while you paint?
To the point where it's shows that you have to pay like close attention to. I just don't really watch anymore because I'm usually doing something like this. Documentaries are really good.
Yeah.
It's like every so often you want to see what they're talking about.
Like the
worst
community out there, I want to say to you guys, like, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I, for one, am razor focused when I'm painting. I feel like if I take my eyes off for 1 second, I'm going to make a mistake or something like that. I don't know about everybody out there, what you guys do while you're painting, but Allison, she's a pro. So she can watch documentaries while she's painting.
Documentaries. The worst is Dancing with the Stars. It is useless if you're not paying attention. You're like, oh, that's light. Bad. No, you missed the whole thing.
No.
Doesn't work. The documentaries, good. But if you just want to practice like pulling a line, yeah, that's a good way to go. After that, let's kind of you just practice some blending. So I got out some of my yellow.
When you're practicing, pulling a line? What are some of the things you're looking for? Like,
well,
the-
it depends on what I'm doing, right? I might just want like a really clean edge. So I'll have my eye on the edge I want to make and not be too worried about the other side of the line. And then
Yeah.
rotate right up until that edge.
Yeah.
But I've got that nice clean edge, which was kind of the only reason I had a careful line. If I'm doing something more like the antenna in this example, I'm really interested in the line weight. So I'm going to try and make it as consistent all the way along as possible.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's what color mixing or transitioning. If we want to transition from red to yellow, you want to keep it really wet on that edge. You might want to start your yellow over here and then kind of blend the interim. It's a good way to transition.
That's really nice. And white helps. Did you put white in there or no? Do you
Nope.
use water?
Nope. So
Yeah.
this is it's going to dry very translucent. If you want it more opaque, add some white.
Okay.
Next thing I want to show you is a glazing technique. So I've got my butterfly painted right here and I'm looking at it. And you know what? I want to give it sort of like a film over it that's very consistent, but yellow. Okay. So I'm just going to reach for my yellow paint. I've got a lot of water on my brush. And remember, all colors are not created equally. Your yellow, especially in these paints and in life, but these especially, it's going to be more of a gel. And so it works really well for glazing.
Okay.
And I am just going to apply a thin film of yellow over a very dry, ask Hershey, I hair dried it before we got started to make sure it was dry. And I just made this not leaf wing. That took me a minute. This wing got a yellow glaze. And what's really exciting about a glaze is it doesn't necessarily change the value a whole lot. It probably does to a certain extent, but it changes the hue, it changes the color. And so we consistently put this yellow film over the whole thing, and it just sort of tweaks the color a little bit.
And you were saying earlier, you said that one of them is to change the color of or the hue of the color, and the other one is to make all the colors kind of have the same. What were you saying?
Yeah, and so we're gonna try the white veil now, and that might be a me word, not an art word. So I am just going to, and it works really well with this white. We have a really good white that we use, this heavy body covering white. I love my white. And what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of break up our heavy body white because it is so rich. And in this instance, we're just going to take our now watered down white and go over this whole wing. And if you look, this kind of, in ways, is the same, but the outcome's a little different. So usually you don't glaze with something that's kind of milky or opaque.
Right.
Which is why I call this more of a veiling, where the values, the lightness and darkness are barely affected. In this instance, we've kind of made all the values, the lightness and darkness, we've taken them and made them closer together. So this is not, the light areas are not a whole lot lighter than the darker areas now because we've put this white veil over the whole thing. And we do both of these in the Moth video at different times for different reasons. So if you look, this still has a lot of contrast here between the light and the dark, and the contrast is less, but it's this kind of really beautiful translucent veiling that looks kind of like a veil or like lace or something like that. So we do both of those things. And then the final technique that I'm going to show today is what I consider to be a scumbling technique. And in this instance, I'm going to start with my white paint and I'm going to put it down in its rich, thick, kind of out of the tube texture. And I'm going to start with the white. And then I'm going to reach for some of my yellow and mix it into the already white paint that's there. And the reason we're starting with the white, and I'm going to do some with the red too, and then you're going to kind of break this up and kind of mix with it, is it's going to go down more opaque than if we'd done it the other way around.
Okay.
And we want to cover our canvas.
Clarification, sorry to interrupt you.
No.
A quick question.
Yeah.
When you say when you're going to wet it down on the veiling, was that wetting it down with more paint or a different color paint or with the water?
Just with the water. I broke it up. I took the white. We can do it again.
Yeah.
I took the white and I added a generous amount of water to it.
There you go.
And because you want this to be really even, you don't want any chunks. So what you end up drawing from, you want to be this, like this very fluid, consistent mixture. And then I'll do it over here. So we're going to put a white veil over these strokes I made.
Nice. And that question came from Lori, who is joining us tonight from Minneapolis. So thank you, Lori, for that question.
Thank you, Lori, for that question. So just like that. So do you see how there is now, it's a lower contrast between the red stripes and the kind of almond colored background.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going to show the Scumbling technique. I'm just going to go ahead and rip this out for a second. Leave it out.
So far we've gone over veiling and we've gone over glazing, right?
Yes. And it's a very similar technique. You're just doing it for different outcomes, which is why I go ahead and separate them.
Yeah.
And then, so the Scumbling technique, we'll get all these guys out again. You scumble for a lot of different reasons sometimes, but in this instance, if we were just going to start painting right on the paper, it's going to go down like that. And then we might mix in some white and it's going to look nice, but it's going to look like that. If you start with the white, which is this really opaque covering white, heavy body covering white.
And a lot of it. Yeah. It looks like a lot of paint.
Yeah. And you have so much white. We send you a white every month. Generously use your white. More is coming.
Right. Yeah.
And then you sort of fold in or scumble your pigmented paint. It's going to lay down a whole lot more opaquely than if you did it the other way around.
Yeah.
You see how this looks different than that?
Yeah.
And this is what we're going for.
If there were lines like you're going to have tonight, we're going to have those tracing, those graphite lines, and you're going to want that opaqueness. Is that a word?
Right. Yeah. And this is how we're putting in the whole background, just like this. So you're going to lay down your white and then mix in your pigments. So those are the techniques. These are your colors. Here's your white. Have your canvas panel all set up. Get your water ready. And we're going to go ahead and live stream our YouTube video.
Are we ready to do that?
We're ready to do that.
Okay.
Join our group. We're really, really excited to have you. And we're really excited for sharing on this group.
Yes. And just a real quick reminder, Allison and I will still be available for the entire duration of the video. So we got a great question coming in. Cheryl Basilio was like, scumble, is that, am I hearing that right? And yes, you are hearing that right. I'll find the exact definition for you and post it in the comments. The link for our YouTube video that you're going to follow tonight is also in the comments. If you guys don't have your what is this called, Allison?
If you don't have your reference image with your code, It's the link's been also provided, and we're also going to stream it right now. So if you can paint right now, we're ready for you.
The other thing I want to say that Allison already said once, and I just want to remind everybody too, please invite your friends, even if they're not gonna subscribing at the box, whatever, please invite them to join that subscriber group, because that is where they're all gonna see your wonderful art. That's where you're gonna be able to see what everybody else is doing. And even though it does seem private where you have to be allowed in, we're letting you in. So
we're letting you in. We just want to make sure you're a human, not a bot. That's the only reason why we're doing it that way. Okay, so I am going to share this.
Okay.
And we're going to mute ourselves, but we're going to be available for comment, we think.
Yeah.
Okay, Hershey, can you see that? Are we on the...
Oh, let's see.
Are we on the YouTube page?
Yep, we are. I see.
Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and play this.
Yep.
Hello, today.
We're there. I don't hear anything from the video.
Then you're going to reach for your transfer paper. You want to make sure that is shiny, sticky side down. Just like that. And then make sure it's lined up. And grab a pen or the pencil that we provide. And in this instance, we're just going to go ahead and put pressure on the outer perimeter of the shapes. In this case, it's the flower cluster and the moth. So we're not going to do the interior detail. We're just going to go around the outer contours of the shapes. And that includes, if you look, some of these stems. We're going to go around some of the stems. And you'll be left with kind of the cookie cutter outside of the moth and the flower cluster. Just like that. Go ahead and pause, get all that in there. Now I'm reaching for the crimson. And I'm going to go ahead and put just a touch of that in one of my wells. And we're just going to wash in the entire shape with that crimson, just so that we know where it is, so we know where the stems begin and end, where the blossoms start, before we put in the background. And by wash, I'm mixing a lot of water with that drop of crimson. And this is just so that I have a visual indicator for myself that I know where my flower cluster begins and ends. I'm going to do the same thing with the moth with our green. Again, I'm putting just a drop on there. Gonna water it down with some water. You can go ahead and pause, make sure you have your green on there. Do the exact same thing, fill in your moth. This is just a visual map so you know where things are. Go ahead and reach for your yellow. Drop a generous, it's kind of like a 2, 3, or 4 drops into one of your wells. Grab your green. Same thing in one of your other wells and your big opaque covering white. 3 different colors, 3 different wells. Grab your big brush. Right now I'm reaching for the white, and what we're going to do is we're going to apply some straight up white and then generously, sloppily in an impasto abstract way, fold your colors into that white. There's no wrong way to do it. But if you start kind of with your white, it's going to be a little bit more opaque, which is why I did. So now I'm going up and over the moth into the top part of my picture plane, into the side. There's going to be some overlap, but that's why we went ahead and painted in the entire shape of the flower so that when everything dries, you'll still know where that begins and ends. And we're just doing some yellow. This can be any way you like it. You just want to make sure you cover up all the tiny holes in the porous canvas panel. And what I did next was I washed out my brush, but I got some of the water and I'm just kind of filling in, moving around some of the paint on the canvas with some water. Then we're going to go ahead and let this dry. I went ahead and did it with a hair dryer. You can walk away from it, but this needs to be completely dry before you move on. So it's always going to dry a little bit darker, but also more transparent. So if you look, it already looks different now that it's getting more dry. Go ahead and pause, get all that done. So now I'm going to retransfer all of the interior parts of the moth and the flower cluster. And then you're looking at your own painting. If there's any of the exterior lines you want to include, go ahead and add those too right now. It's all still right there. So I'm taking my time and I'm spending a lot of time making sure I catch every single one of those blossoms, the centers. Some of them have individual petals. You can use any writing utensil you like. Sometimes I like a blue pen just because you can see where you've been on the black and white outline. All the small individual stems. All the veining in the moth. Remember, we're using graphite transfer paper, so if you don't like some of these lines, you can certainly erase them. Always easiest to erase actually on a surface that's already been painted because it's not getting absorbed into the pre-primed canvas panel. So if you lift this up and you're like, oh, that, that's a stray mark or something like that, go ahead and try and erase it. It doesn't necessarily all come off, but it'll get you almost there. All right, so I'm taking everything apart and I'm going to take a look at what I've got. And I like everything. Everything is exactly how I want it to look. Got all my lines there. Go ahead and pause. And I'm reaching for my crimson. And I'm going to put a fairly generous drop of crimson into two different wells. And I'm reaching for my green, and one of those wells is getting a very generous drop of green. The crimson is more saturated than the green, so you kind of need more green to get a 50-50 mix. And so this is this really beautiful kind of army green. I want it a little bit greener than red. Army green neutral, and that's going to be the color that we use for all these dark neutrals in the flower cluster. So I'm starting with some of these big stems, and it's all outlined for you from your transfer. And I'm filling them in, and eventually I'm going to want these very, very opaque, but it's going to take a couple coats. So I'm just making sure I understand which ones I want this color. So I'm hitting all of those areas first. making it as even as possible, but if it's not quite the way I want it, we're going to go back over it again and again, actually. Go ahead and pause, paint in your stems with your neutral. Now I'm reaching for my green, and I'm just going to put that right back where I had it before. I need more of it. And I'm just going to paint in some of the veins of the moth that I really want to emphasize. And if you notice, I want the pencil lines to kind of show. I'm not trying to cover them up. I'm trying to sort of reinforce them. And they'll probably kind of show in the end. Go ahead and pause, get that in. Now I'm second coating all those neutrals with our kind of army green red color. And I'm adding some of that color to our existing crimson, just a touch. Just kind of mess it up a little bit so it doesn't look exactly like it came out of the tube. It's a little bit desaturated. And I'm going to paint in the rest of the stems to our flower cluster. And you can see the contrast there. There's our very red stems and our more neutral stems. Both are beautiful. And it's pretty much everything you didn't cover initially with the neutral green-red color. Green and red are complements. That's why they work so well in this instance, to offset each other and make that neutral. And I added a little bit to the main stem. Go ahead and pause. Now I'm taking some of the existing white I had. If you need more, add more. And I'm adding some of our crimson mixture, very much mostly crimson. And we made a pink, a very light pink. And that's going to be our blossom color. And just kind of take your time and fill in your blossoms. It's going to be the most opaque color you've used so far. Our white is very opaque. It's a covering white. And all of your blossoms are this color. So just take your time and fill in your blossoms. Using my smallest brush right now. If you kind of lost your blossoms for whatever reason, just make sure everything's dry and go ahead and retransfer them. That's why we keep it there. I'm just making sure they are completely filled in and my lines are clean. A little bit of highlight on some of the stems. You can see where I'm doing that. Go ahead and pause. Reaching again for that green mixture, green and red neutral. Reinforcing the areas that are already there because I want them nice and dense and opaque. You may not need it. Same for the redder areas, catching them both, but I want all of that nice and opaque. Go ahead and pause. Big brush, get it nice and wet. Dip into your white. This is a glazing technique. Make sure your moth is completely dry. And I'm adding a glaze, a thin veil of our covering white. And I'm very evenly applying it on top of what we've already painted. Our greens are going to glow right through there. And it's going to create this kind of translucent, almost iridescent look. Go ahead and let that dry and fill in the areas you want very, very green. If it's not quite dry, it looks like I'm scumbling some of this in here. So both approaches work. It's Scumbling is just when you kind of mix something into something that's already wet. And I'm just going over some of the lines I really want to reinforce on our moth. The body, some of the veining, little legs, going up into the top wing. Reaching for the neutral. And basically all the areas I want a little bit darker and a little bit more warm and not quite so green, more brown or desaturated. I'm using that neutral we already mixed for the flower. Need to make more, you know how to make it. And that's the body, the legs, the antennas, the tops of both wings and some of the veins. You're looking at your own painting, where it needs to be a little bit darker and a little bit less green from the tube. A little more neutral. Catching all the areas I might have missed, go ahead and pause. Do that. Now I'm gonna reach for my red mixture, my crimson red mixture that I've been working from if you need to make more. And I'm adding that to my existing pink because I want a darker, more pink, more pigmented color to add the dark sides to all of my blossoms. And it's everywhere you see darker in your reference to make your blossoms look more defined. So these are the dark sides of the blossoms. And I'm filling them in with our darker pink. And now I'm reaching just for that same red mixture and dropping centers into your blossom flowers. It's that red center. Every one of them gets one. And I'm just putting those in right where I think they go, in the middle of all of my blossoms. And anywhere else that needs a little bit of a touch up with that red while it's on my brush. Now I'm adding that same red into the moth. All the areas that need this warmer definition, it's going to be the darkest color we've used there so far. And I'm putting that on tops of the wings, the antennas, that round mark on the top wing. And I'm just kind of evening it out with a little bit of water. Really hitting a few of the sort of stripy lines I want to make sure look very defined on the top wing and that round mark. I want this very dry because I'm going to do a glazing technique over the moth in a minute. So I'm making sure it's dry. You can always walk away. But we need this bone dry. Go ahead and pause. Do all of that. Reach for your water. Get into the straight up yellow. And your yellow is always going to be more of a gel. And in this instance, we're going to use it just like that. And we're going to glaze right over the moth wings. And I'm kind of working from the left side in on both wings and the body. And we're really getting this really beautiful glowing texture. I'm also highlighting some parts of the blossom cluster. And now I'm doing kind of the same thing with the white. All the areas I want to look really white, I'm hitting with the white and some water in the moth, in the wings. And you are looking at your own painting, you know where it needs to go. But with all of these transparent, translucent layers, we're getting this really beautiful, translucent kind of iridescent moth. Some of the body. All of this I'm doing with my white. I'm going to highlight some parts of the blossoms with just some straight up white, where I want it to be lightest. Final highlights on the stems. With white and a little bit of water in this instance. Go ahead and pause. Get all that in. Now, I decided to sign it with my neutral. And there you are. Look at the moth you made. Sign it and display it. And thanks for doing time for art today.
With MailChimp, you can guide customers along the path to purchase with our Customer Journey Builder.
Welcome back to Tutorial Tidbits. I'm Elizabeth St. Hilaire, and this week